Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, my name is Ann at Martin House Flowers. I garden in Zone 5B in Northern Illinois. I have about a third of an acre, and last year was a very busy year for us. We built this greenhouse that we're in, and my husband also built me 6 new raised beds so that I could start to grow cut flowers. So this year I'm going to continue to grow my cut flowers, learn about what I did last year and improve on that this year, try some new things. And in today's video, I wanted to just go through a few of the items on my April garden checklist. April is a very busy time, as we gardeners know, and although my list is fairly long, I thought today I would just tackle a few of those items based on the weather, of course. Today is in the mid 40s. It's still another windy day. It's a little bit chilly right now, so I don't think I'm going to continue those outdoor projects. But yesterday I was able to sow some of my tomato seeds and some nasturtiums. I did my projects outside that included pruning my clematis, my panicle hydrangeas, and my lavender. And that was about it. And I still have a part 2 video of this to do, and that will include planting my sweet peas into the containers behind me with the obelisks. I still have a lot more seeds to do. I have cosmos, zinnias, a lot of other cut flowers, and of course I'll show you the progress of all of my bulbs and containers that I have sitting here beside me. So thanks for joining me, and I hope if you haven't already, please subscribe, comment, and share. Hope you enjoy this video. In today's video, I thought I would go through some of the items on my April garden checklist. The first item on my checklist is to sow my tomato seeds, and I decided to reduce the list of seeds that I had started last year. So the first one is gold medal tomato. These were a really juicy, tasty yellow-red tomato. It was great for sandwiches. I actually turned some of it into salsa at the end of the season. It's an indeterminate tomato, and it just has a beautiful, bursting, tangy, sweet flavor. The next one is a Napoli tomato, which I think you can compare that to a Roma tomato, just a little bit smaller. Now it's a determinate tomato, and it was quite juicy, and I wanted to repeat that one. And then for our little snack tomatoes, we're doing the sweetie tomatoes again, and it's an indeterminate tomato. So I am doing that new tomato orange hat, which is supposed to be a nice miniature container tomato. And I got those from Baker Creek. The other 3 seeds were from M.I. Gardner. Now, one thing I did learn from sowing tomatoes and growing tomatoes last year was that I had too many plants. And I've decided to just do my 4, I think they're like a 5-inch bootstrap farmer container. And I sowed 4 seeds per pot, and they will continue to grow in that pot. Tomatoes get a nice deep root. I won't have to plant them up starting in these deep pots. So I basically sowed them. All my tomatoes get sowed at 1/8 of an inch deep, and then I top them off with vermiculite. And it went really quickly. I didn't pre-moisten my soil, but I did give it a good soak after each of those were sown. There's the size of the tomatoes. They're a really nice, manageable seed. And again, they just got sown 1/8 of an inch. You can either surface sow it and then just add soil on top, or just sink them in a little bit. I just made a little incision with my plant tag, And then, of course, adding vermiculite on top maintains the moisture and reduces any kind of chance of mold and mildew. So there I am, just poking with my tag 4 little incisions into the soil. And this went quite quickly, as I mentioned. And then because they were just 4 of those pots, I was able to put a plastic dome over it and squeeze them into one of the last spots on my grow lights in the guest room, and I will show you that in a minute. The Napoli is a determinate tomato, and what that means is that it is a bushier plant, and once the plant reaches its full height, it will produce fruit all at once, versus an indeterminate tomato. And the sweetie tomatoes and the gold medal tomatoes are indeterminate tomatoes, and those are more of a vining tomato. Those indeterminate tomatoes will continue to produce fruit on the vines throughout the season. So once I labeled all of my tomato plants, I took my spray bottle and gave all of the seedlings a good spritz. You can do this before or after the vermiculite. I chose to do it after and just give it a good soak. And once I brought them in and put a humidity dome on top, I will leave them under my grow lights until I see growth. And I think that I should be able to see something pretty quickly, usually between 7 to 10 days. And according to my last frost date, I could actually have started my tomatoes back in middle of March. But I chose to plant my seeds at the beginning of April because I recall last year that they grew so quickly, and if in fact we have a late frost, I don't want to be having them grow inside too quickly. I also had to restart my pepper seedlings since I had brought the seedlings out into the greenhouse a little too early. So there I started Greg's jalapeno peppers and Thai chili peppers, along with some nasturtiums in those mushroom containers. And I had to try to squeeze them into my grow lights. As you can see, it's a little bit easier fitting these small mushroom containers or recycled plastic containers. I even used an egg carton there, a clear one, and it fit quite nicely. Next on my April garden to-do list was to prune my clematis. And when I went to look at it this time versus the other day, I could actually see some new growth happening. And I had researched that I was to prune these back because they are a type 3 clematis or a group 3 clematis, and I was to prune them back anywhere from 18 to 24 inches. But it made it super easy because I could see these new buds, this new growth, and I typically in the past with other clematis I had just cut or prune right above that new growth, which is what I did. I debated on whether I should keep this bamboo trellis that the plant came with when I first bought it. Let me know in the comments below if you keep these little bamboo trellises that come with your clematis or roses. When I bought it last summer, it was so entangled in the bamboo trellis that it was impossible to really separate it from it, but I was just debating on whether or not I should remove it. But until it reaches my iron arbor, I thought maybe it would help to kind of guide it before it grew tall enough to start climbing. Once I pruned back the clematis to all of the new buds that I could see, I was able to release all of these entangled vines, and that felt good because I could tell that there was a lot of dead branches, and so now that finally looked nice and cleaned up, and I think from here on in I will see nothing but new growth. So that was encouraging. On to the next task on my to-do list was to prune back my panicle hydrangeas. So just a few feet away from my cut flower garden and my clematis are my panicle hydrangeas, and right here are my little lime hydrangeas. I have 3 of the little limes right here on the west side of the garden. And as you can see here, it was pretty easy to find new growth, new buds coming up, and I just cut right above any new buds that I could see, which represented about 1/3. And you often hear about cutting back your panicle hydrangeas by approximately 1/3. And panicle hydrangeas grow off new wood. And I typically prune mine back around Easter, but because Easter is late April this year, April 20th, I decided it was time to go ahead and prune back my panicle hydrangeas. And the rule of thumb that you hear about is basically to cut typically by about 1/3, and to cut anything that is any branches that are facing inwards that will compete with other main branches. And then you also hear the comment that to cut back anything that is thinner than a pencil. But I have to qualify that statement that I've heard quite often, in that if you have a young hydrangea, panicle hydrangea, like mine are 3 years old, there are many branches that are thinner than a pencil. So I wouldn't necessarily use that rule of thumb, because even my main branches, like this one right here, is only about as thick as a pencil, or even maybe narrower than a pencil. So I would use that with that analogy with a grain of salt. I think that applies more to mature panicle hydrangeas, but definitely use your judgment in cutting back any branches that are quite spindly, that are facing inward, that are looking obviously weak. So as you can see here, I went pretty quickly and cut back to where I saw some new buds. So between my little lime hydrangeas, I had 3 lavender shrubs here that needed to be cut back as well. So I went ahead and just took handfuls and gave them a very hard pruning. There's no real technique to it other than I just mound them and give them a nice little haircut and clean them up. I didn't really see signs of new growth. You're not supposed to cut to where it gets really woody down at the base, but I just gave it a nice trimming. These are the second set of lavender between the little limes and the bobo hydrangea. And I did the same thing. I just went in and gave it a hard prune. After pruning back my lavender, it was time to get after pruning back the bobo hydrangeas that were right next to it. I used the same process as with the other panicle hydrangeas, the other little lime hydrangeas, cutting them back by a third and finding a new bud to cut to. That is the Carefree Wonder rose that had been scraped by the rabbits, so I went ahead and just cut it back as well. I carried on with the hydrangeas right across from the bobos. I have the Quickfire Fab hydrangeas. I have 4 of them, and it got pretty windy, so it was really difficult to film. And I just went through the job of pruning back those hydrangeas and called it a day. I felt very satisfied at having completed my hydrangea room and pruning all of those panicle hydrangeas. I do still have a few more things on my list, but that will just have to wait for another day.